Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So, obviously, I've said this many times before, but I think it's a good way to just introduce a topic like this. Much of my channel and much of my content, recently maybe you found me out about TSM drama, LS drama, whatever, but generally for the most part, the biggest booms in my channel and my kind of favorite times, and I think a lot of your favorite times as well, are the off-season. Roster changes, roster rumors, speculation, all that good stuff. Obviously, LEC Wooloo is a guy we follow a lot, and he recently just put out a very interesting piece of content, a very interesting article. I don't know exactly how to put it, but he's done a face reveal, he's done a name reveal. He works for like a publishing company now, or whatever you want to call it, for like a journalism company. So he's actually putting out stuff, and he put out an interesting list of stuff from this past offseason, the 2021 offseason. As crazy as it was, as many moves as we saw, he wrote an article about all the rumors he heard about that didn't end up happening. Some of these he's posted about before, some of these he hasn't, but I think they're very interesting to kind of think just what could have been, how things could have changed, how if one domino would have fell differently, the rosters that we could have seen. Maybe it also gives us insight into moves that we for sure won't see in the future, or maybe moves that we potentially could see in the future if, they were super close to happening or whatever. So I think this should be a fun and exciting video. I love that Wooloo put this out, but I think it flew under the radar a little bit, so I want to give it, some more exposure. So definitely drop a like if you guys do enjoy this video. I would appreciate that a ton, and subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Help us run those numbers up. I think like 49% of the people that watch my videos don't subscribe for whatever reason. So hey, make sure you are not a statistic. Click that button. But with that being said, let's get right into this one. So, he did an LEC and an LCS version. I want to save the LCS stuff for later. I might just make a totally separate video about the LCS stuff, or I might dive into some of the LCS stuff more specifically. But I wanted to go over the LEC stuff, and I want to start from the bottom up. I think some of the spicier ones are up top, but there are some spicy ones down here as well. We got to get that YouTube watch time, and I want you guys to stick around and go through this with me. But at the bottom is a very interesting one. He talks about Fnatic Summit. Current Cloud9 top laner Summit was considered by Fnatic. Obviously, Fnatic had Adam, who I think they were fine with. If they were stuck with Adam, I don't think that was going to be the end of the world. I think Adam was pretty good for them last year. I think he was developing a lot. I think he shows a ton of talent, promise, potential. Maybe he hasn't been that insane for BDS this year, but hey, maybe if you put him on a better roster, maybe he'd look a little bit better. But obviously, he was upset with, the whole upset situation. I didn't even mean to do that, but he was not happy about that whole situation, and, that led to him wanting to leave, and then that led Fnatic to have an opening in the top lane position. We heard about some other guys that Fnatic went after. Obviously, they ended up with Wonder, but they went after Cabochard. Maybe they went after some other guys as well. And I think Fnatic Summit would have been very interesting. Now, it does say, we're uncertain as to why this move didn't go through, but there were worries on Fnatic's side regarding communication issues, which I think is very fair. I think, from what I've heard of the comms, Summit does speak a little bit of English. I don't know if he did previously or not, but he can for sure speak like broken English. I know in the LS video that they just put out, he spoke Korean, so I'm sure he's not entirely confident in his English, but from voice-com videos and stuff, he speaks English in game at least well enough. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think having concerns about communication issues is always very fair and valid, so I don't fault them for that too much. But man, Fnatic Summit would have been pretty cool. I'm happy with how things went. I think Fnatic Wonder is really exciting and cool and has been good, but hey, Fnatic Summit would have been a nice choice as well. Excel Forgiven, I think this is kind of interesting. I don't really have a big opinion about this one. It's kind of like maybe some stuff could have fallen differently. Hey, maybe Excel ends up with Forgiven, maybe Patrick goes to Mad Lions. Maybe these things shape out a little bit differently, but hey, Excel Forgiven, that would have been decent. But obviously Unforgiven seems to be working out pretty well with Mad Lions, and Patrick seems to be working out pretty well with Excel, so I don't really think anyone's too upset about that. Rogue Patrick. Before returning to Excel, several LEC teams were interested in Patrick. Rogue and Team BDS were two of those. So BDS, I don't really think that would have been that great of a place for Patrick. I think BDS is still developing, and maybe Patrick will be a target for them later on down the road when they're more ready to win now. I think right now they're very developmental roster, and I think that's what Grabs wants to do and wants to build a lot of these guys up. But Rogue Patrick could have been interesting, and honestly, I do think that Patrick is better than Comp. So I would have maybe liked to see this happen. Obviously, we don't know exactly why it didn't happen, but man, Rogue Patrick, that would have been pretty interesting. BDS Jack Spectra didn't just play trials for G2. Team BDS also considered the bot laner before deciding with X Maddie. Rogue, Excel, and K-Corp were also teams that considered Jack Spectra. In the case of K-Corp, an agreement was reached, but the rest is history. Obviously, they ended up getting reckless, ended up kicking Jack Spectra. He had a little bit of an, feels bad man off season. X Maddie has not been that great for BDS this season. He's obviously a work in progress. He's still a project. But I do think we're going to see Jack Spectra in the LEC sooner rather than later. So we'll get to see, how he ends up working out. We also have Fnatic Cabochard and KC Milanic. Fnatic failed to reach an agreement with a few top laners and were in a complicated situation about Wonder. They ended up making an offer for Cabochard, but the interesting part here is that Cabochard denied the offer in order to stay with K-Corp. I think that is a very, very, interesting thing. I think that's a very, very surprising decision for somebody to turn down not just an LEC offer to stay in the ERLs, but to turn down an LEC offer from Fnatic to stay in the ERLs. That's a big story. That's kind of one we already knew about, but then he also says, K-Corp did reach out to Milanic to have a backup top laner, obviously, in case Cabochard decided to move on to Fnatic. We have Misfits Vander. Misfits ended up going with Mursa, but Vander was slated to potentially be the starting support for this team, but kind of Mursa outplayed him in their boot camp and in their preseason stuff, it sounds like. Yeah, again, not a huge opinion about that. I don't think that's too crazy. G2 Jack Spectra, G2 Kadoi, I don't know, G2 Mursa, and G2 Hantera. It sounds like G2 was everywhere. They were, trying out all different kinds of players for all different kinds of positions. It sounds like Broken Blade was pretty much a lock in the top lane, but a ton of different AD carry and support combinations that they were interested in. While G2 considered known LEC names for the bot lane, they also had tryouts with several bot laners and supports from ERLs. In the end, they decided signing Targamas and Flockhead, obviously, but it's kind of interesting. I think Targamas has been very good, so I think, overall, Targamas was probably a better pickup than Mursa or Hantera. But, I'm not totally sold on Flockhead yet. I don't know that Flockhead ended up being a better pickup than how good could Jack Spectra have been? I don't know for sure. I think Flockhead has been fine, but he's definitely made some mistakes. He's made some silly plays. He hasn't been perfect. He hasn't been amazing. We'll have to see. I don't know. That's kind of one that I think we'll have to see how that plays out. BDS Mickey X, I think this one makes a lot of sense. Obviously BDS ended up with Limit. I think Mickey is a clear upgrade over Limit. I don't think Limit is bad, but I don't think he's good either. I think he's just pretty meh, pretty middling. He has some high highs, he has some good moments, but he has a lot of bad moments as well. Obviously, there is the existing relationship between Mickey and Grabs, which would have been interesting for BDS. But I don't hate that BDS didn't go with Mickey at this time. Again, BDS is a team that has a lot of money, and I think sometime in the near future will be spending to try and make some really exciting roster. But it doesn't make sense for them to have 4 developmental players or 3 developmental players, whatever, and then Mickey, and then spend all the money on Mickey's buyout and his salary and everything. So I don't mind BDS passing on that right now. I think how Vitality kind of did it was good, where, if you have the option to get the super team, you do it. But if you don't have the option to get the super team, you don't pay 2 players or 1 player randomly a bunch of money and have kind of a crappy team around them. But knowing that BDS was interested in Mickey, I think is cool, and that would have been cool to see, Mickey getting to play with Grabs and working on more of a developmental lineup. But Mickey's in a pretty good spot in Excel right now. Astralis Leader. Astralis had interest in Leader, who is still under contract with Team Vitality. However, when the team asked the player to try out, Leader wasn't interested. That is kind of funny. Leader would rather not play for Astralis than, play in the LEC, which is kind of crazy. I think Leader probably should have taken advantage of this opportunity. I'm not a huge fan of Leader. I don't think he was that good last year, but obviously I don't think De Jure is that good either. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if Leader regrets this at all. Here I thought was a very, very interesting one. Fnatic Reeker. Reeker was considered by many LEC teams during the offseason, one of which was Excel. Fnatic were one of those teams before getting Humanoid. Obviously, once Humanoid was an option, that's where they wanted to go. Reeker was considered in the case where they wouldn't get Humanoid. Once Fnatic started the process to get Humanoid, Mad Lions committed to Reeker and Excel, followed by locking Nuke Duck. Reeker was obviously good in the ERLs, and a ton of people were hyped up and excited about him. But I think this is interesting because I don't think he's been that good in the LEC this year. And if Fnatic ended up, moving on from Niski to Reeker, and he performed how he's performing right now for Mad Lions, One, I don't think Fnatic would be doing all that well, especially considering how good they're doing right now. They still have their own fair share of ups and downs and mistakes and big wins and bad losses and everything with Humanoid, who I think is way, way, way better than Reeker. But I wonder how fans would have thought about this and how the team would be performing. Because, again, I get Reeker was hyped up, but he hasn't been that good this year. So I'm really happy that Humanoid ended up, going over to Fnatic, obviously. And I do wonder what Mad Lions is going to do with Reeker here soon, if they're how long they're gonna ride him out. We also have G2 Labrov. I know this is something that we heard about a lot during the offseason as a big, big rumor. While under contract with Team Vitality, G2 showed interest in possibly buying out Labrov. However, this was denied from Team Vitality, and I think that makes a ton of sense. Team Vitality was trying to form a super team. It sounds like Carzzy really wanted to play with Labrov. It sounds like if G2 would have gotten Labrov, that Carzzy may have came to G2. But obviously, Vitality kept Labrov. They ended up getting this full super team. Again, Labrov not really playing that well this season. He has not been insane. So it would have been interesting to see if he went to G2. But, maybe things would have been differently. Maybe Labrov will pick it up the rest of the season. I don't know. But I do think that it seems like Carzzy was going to maybe just go where Labrov went. And it could have changed a lot of things if Vitality would have sold him off. But I don't really think it's that realistic. I think Vitality needed to hold on to their guy to be able to build this whole team. This one's interesting as well. SK113 and SK Pride Stalker. Obviously, SK ends up going with Gilius. I didn't think Gilius was that exciting or interesting of a pickup. I don't think Gilius has been that good this season, and I think either 113 or Pride Stalker would have been better pickups. Obviously, Pride Stalker looks pretty decent so far with Golden Guardians, just a couple games into the LCS season, and 113, shows a ton of promise, a ton of talent, a ton of potential. He is kind of one of the more promising ERL junglers right now. He would look rough in some games. He would in some games. He's had some bad moments, even for K-Corp, even in the ERLs, and he would, have even more of that in the LEC. But I think he has a much brighter future ahead, even if he's not maybe he'd be a little bit more inconsistent than Gilius right now, but with Gilius, you know what you're getting. You know he's going to be a middle-of-the-pack jungler at best, if not likely worse. So I kind of question why Excel went with Gilius. I wonder if it was money. I wonder if they just thought Gilius was the best of these three. I really don't know. But I know that Gilius has made, or not Gilius, but SK has made a ton of weird decisions. So I really wouldn't put anything past them. We then have Rogue Reckless. This is a big one. Obviously, everyone understands that Rogue Reckless, would have made sense. They lost Hansama. Reckless was a free agent, but hey, it didn't happen. So why didn't it happen? And he says here, another G2 esports player, Reckless, had some LEC and LCS teams potentially interested in buying him out. One of those organizations was Rogue, but G2 and Rogue couldn't find an agreement. That must be a money issue. Maybe it's possible that G2 was like, hey, let's trade Reckless for Hansama. And I know that Rogue wasn't interested in giving Hansama to anyone in the LEC. So maybe that was the issue, or maybe it was just they couldn't agree on a buyout. But man, Rogue Reckless would have been really, really cool. That would have been really, really fun to see, and that's one of the more ones I'm kind of disappointed in. BDS Malrung, I don't think this makes a ton of sense. Obviously, Syncroft has been really, really good for BDS, and again, BDS is a little bit more of a developmental roster, so I don't really see why Malrung would have ended up there. And I like that he's on Rogue, and I think he's been good for the team. Fnatic, Alphari, and Perks is something we have heard about. We know that Fnatic and Cloud9 were in conversations. We know they couldn't agree on a buyout. We know also that Carlos was trying to block Perks from going to Fnatic anyway. We also have Riot coming out and saying that they would not have let Carlos block Perks going to Fnatic, but we'll never know because obviously it never happened. But Fnatic, Alphari, and Perks would have been massive, obviously. But then also it says Fnatic was interested in both, but they were also interested in just Alphari on his own. But it sounds like, Alphari wanted to play with Perks, and that's why they ended up at Vitality, because they could actually play together, and Vitality could actually agree on the buyout for those players as well. And then finally, the last big one here is Excel Wonder. Wonder was considered as a top laner for Excel, but Wonder still had a 2-year contract with G2. Excel couldn't find an agreement with G2, so they ended up moving to other options. Their last tryouts were between, Sagenda and Finn. Obviously, they ended up going with Finn. But man, Excel Wonder would have been pretty interesting. Then you could have potentially gotten Wonder and Mickey both playing together. How would things have changed? Would Advian have kept his job? Who knows how it all would have gone down. But These things are just interesting to think about. I love hearing these behind the scenes tidbits. Obviously, Wooloo hears all kinds of stuff. He has amazing sources. He does a great job with what he does and the work he does in the scene. And I love hearing about these things. I love talking about these things. I hope you guys love hearing and talking about these things as well. And again, I think these are just fun. These are some of my favorite videos and topics to talk about. And during the season, we don't get a whole lot of opportunities to talk about off-season stuff. So when I see an opportunity and I see someone doing good work, I want to point it out and I want to talk about it. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Tell me, drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know which one of these roster moves you think would have been the most interesting. Let me know which one you think should have happened or maybe will even happen in the future. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, save today, and all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.